We are alive and live. Everybody, as you can see, or anybody that's watching, we are in our hotel room in New York City. Here to discuss and answer questions referencing the book God, Family, Country that I wrote with Jim DeFleece, my dear friend, who has written an enormous amount of great books, New York Times bestsellers. One of my favorite was American Sniper. He also wrote American Sniper, American Wife with Taya Kyle. Great writer. But this is it. This is my book, a memoir, God, Family, Country. And I'm going to answer any questions that you guys or gals have. I will tell you, again, it is a memoir. This book is about my life from the time of my birth all the way up to as of recent when I finished up the TV show Beyond the Edge in the jungles of Panama with my now friends and fellow celebrities or whatever you want to call us. A survival show, a little different than a lot of the other survival shows. But anyway, talks about a lot of things that took place. The majority of my life was in the military, and I did a lot of things while in the military that I had not up until this book been able to discuss. And then I carried some of those experiences forward into my music career. So we're going to answer questions and talk about this book for about 45 minutes. I think my volume might be a little loud. How do I turn that down? That ain't it. There we go. That may be better. I want to thank, first of all, Premier for this, for putting this together and helping us with this live stream. So I'm going to look at these questions over here. Fellow Coke team member. That's awesome. So those of you that might be reading, I don't know if everyone can read. Can everyone else see the feed? I think everyone else can see it too. It said Colt Team. That stands for Combat Observation Laser Team. And I actually referenced that in my book because of a couple of situations that took place while I was a Colt team leader for the 82nd Airborne Division. And it's in the book. Stories in the book. Great story. And entailed me taking off my clothes and bringing in a nuclear medical specialist from Walter Reed Hospital. Man, these things go fast. So I'm going to try to get to these. Here we go. So some of you are already getting the book. I see. If you ordered the book from somewhere online, I don't even know where, they shipped out the books early, some of them. I don't know how or why, but congratulations. You got it a little earlier than most people are able to get it. That's what pre-ordering may have done for you. Let me turn the volume down just a bit. More. Jerry's going to read me the fan questions. Yeah, Jerry's got some questions for me. Jerry's sitting over here on the floor next to us.
I've got a question from Stacy from Savannah, Georgia. She asked, what's one thing fans will be surprised to learn about you after reading the book?
Stacy from Savannah, Georgia. What is the one thing that fans will be surprised to learn about me after reading the book? I think the biggest surprise will be the fact that even though I had started my transition from the military into the music industry, I was still working with the military. And in fact, during my musical endeavors with the USO, I was working with various governmental agencies overseas while doing USO shows. And those stories are interesting. I think that'll be one of the biggest things that you'll hear that I have not alluded to in my past. So that's the biggest thing.
Another one. Todd from Knoxville, Tennessee. Was there something new you discovered about yourself through the process of writing?
Todd from Knoxville. Was there anything that I discovered about myself while working on the book? A couple things. One, I'm probably less patient than I thought I was. Yeah, I'm going to tell everybody something. Listen, when I was writing this book, And you can see there's a lot to it, and we had to take a lot out. This was the most we could do. And there were stories that we were trying to get approved through various governmental agencies. So we had to figure out what we were going to put in, what we couldn't put in, and take that out and maybe replace it with something else, so on and so forth. It was very trying on me, patience-wise. I'm a songwriter. I write songs, and I can write a song in 15 minutes or 3 months. It doesn't take long, depending on if I'm writing with someone or by myself. This book took a lot of time to do. And I will tell you, when I started this book, it was like any other project that I had ever done in my life. I thought that I would do this book, it would be done, and I would move on to the next project, and that was behind me. And that isn't the case with the book, especially a memoir. I've never done anything that was so detailed and so telling. Even some of the songs, and we allude to the songs in the book. A lot of the songs that were personal. For example, the Father, my Son, the Holy Ghost. We talk a lot about that song. We talk a lot about my son. There's a lot of emotion in various chapters of this book. That one in particular. But even though those songs were very personal, I did them and moved on to the next project. This book is not something that I just move on from. I think this book will be a forever endeavor for me. As we start the launch of the book release this week, doing signings at various outlets throughout the country, I can see how this is going to be a long and ongoing process for me. And it is very telling. I've always been no pun intended, an open book with my fan base. I'm kind of a what you see is what you get guy. I'm not an artist who takes on a separate persona when I step on the stage. I'm the same guy on the bus, on the stage, in the woods, or in Alaska, or in a survival situation. No matter where you put me, I don't change who I am or how I approach life. I guess to answer your question in short note, I did in the beginning was, I think the thing that I discovered was that I'm not as patient a person as I may have thought I was.
Okay. Mark from Birmingham, Alabama, asked, in the book, you talk about how your father was also a musician. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And did your father inspire your music?
I do talk about my dad in the book and how he was a musician. And yes, he most definitely, I will say my dad was the initial encouragement. I'm not sure that my dad was very excited about me joining the Army. As any parent is nervous. I don't know that he wasn't mad or angry. I think it was more nervousness, and his nervousness created a bit of an anxiety maybe for him. Any parent whose child goes off to war is going to be nervous and have some sense of anxiousness. So when I started showing interest in music, I think my dad was very excited about that, and he encouraged it. And he was the very first person that I really played some of the stuff that I had written while in the Army for. And so he was very encouraging to get me to go record those things. And I think my dad had seen something in me and my music that even I didn't at that time. So he was definitely an encouragement. In fact, he was probably the very first to encourage me to pursue it professionally.
Here's something a little different. Ronnie from Oklahoma asked, besides yourself, who else do you like listening to? I guess he's referring to music.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't like listening to myself. Once I record a song and it's made the project and we're confident that it's going to be on the album, or we still call them albums, even though they're CDs, and quite frankly, most of them are downloads these days. Once I'm done with that, I don't sit and listen to it over. I'm not the guy that, in fact, used to 15 years ago when driving down the road, and if I heard my song come on the radio, I immediately changed the station to see if I could hear it on any other station. Because generally in a market, and by a market, I mean a city, those stations will play a song really close together, believe it or not. So you can flip back and forth and find that. So I don't listen to myself a lot. I do listen. Uh, I enjoy listening to some of the new artists. I like to see what our format is doing, um, because as much as much as I write and stuff, I want to make sure that I am writing and creating a product that is um, in tune, so to speak, with everything else that the consumer base is wanting to hear. I want to write and record music that the fans want to listen to. Because my wife doesn't buy my stuff, my family doesn't buy it. They all get it from me for free. So I'm not trying to please them. I'm trying to please the fan base. So I'm really, the only reason I listen to any music at all is just to make sure that I am still um, uh, valid, basically, and make sure that I'm still relevant and that my music is still competitive with the current music.
Okay, so Kathy from Arkansas, she writes, veteran, musician, author. What's next for you in your career?
I don't know. That's funny. That's a good question because I do want to continue writing. Jim DeFleece and I are working on some other projects currently, writing. I've have dabbled in the acting in the past, and I felt like I've done okay at that. So I'm pursuing that on a much deeper level. I'm doing more of that. So the writing and acting, I'm continuing to pursue more of that. I will always write. I wish I could say that I will always sing. I will always do it to some degree. I don't know that I will always do 60, 70 shows a year. That's a lot. And it's especially becomes a lot when I'm trying to pursue some of these other things in my life. And I do all of that while trying to spend as much time as I can with my family. Um, I'm really focusing on trying to do things that allow me to be with my family more. And acting and writing are things that I can actually be with my family. And then when I step away from them, I can still do those things. The acting's a little different, requires me to go on set at various locations, um, but preparing for a part, I can be with my family and do that. So yeah, I don't know that there's anything new. I'm not a guy who's ever had a bucket list. I've just kind of done things in my life. Um, the book has kind of caused me to maybe somewhat rethink how I allocate my time towards and my energy towards those things, because it was so in depth and I've seen a lot in studying my past and writing about my past. I realized that God, I had done so much and spent so much time at so many different things, that it's made me think about what it is I really want to try to focus on, especially in this, what I would say is the latter half of my life. This first half of my life is in this book, and I think I got a whole nother half of life left, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to do those things.
All right, Kevin from South Carolina asks, what advice would you give someone just starting out in the industry?
Kevin in South Carolina, the only advice I give new writers, new artists, is make sure that it is something that you're meant to do. Just because you want to do it, just because you like to do it, just because your mama and your wife say it's good, doesn't mean that's where you're supposed to be. But I would also tell you, definitely pursue your passions. I tell everyone that does this the same thing I tell my children. um, Again, reiterating what I just said, just because you want to do it and you like it doesn't mean that you should do it, especially as a living. And I will tell you this, like anything in life, once you start pursuing it as a profession, it's a whole lot different than it was when it was a hobby, because then it does become work. And this is the music industry, the music business. It is a business. And as much fun as it is, if you're going to try to do it full time, you should do it in a way that it affords you to do it and not have to do a lot of other things to pay for the bills, because this requires so much of your time anyway, that if you can't make enough money to support your family at it, and you're having to do all these other things, and I'm not saying that ain't the way it goes in the beginning, especially. It just really boils down to get some professional advice. Play your songs for professionals. If they think there's something there, they'll tell you. If they don't, continue to pursue it while you're able to make a living at something else. Don't ever do it when it's not fun. It should, any form of art, whether it be acting, painting, any form of creation, pottery, whittling, I don't care what it is. Those things should bring you joy in and of themselves. It shouldn't be the monetary aspects of it that bring you joy. You should be able to experience those things and have joy. But just because you experience joy doesn't mean that you can create a monetary drive from it. So don't ever let the joy convince you that you can make the money, and don't let the money, the drive for the money, take away the joy from the project.
Pamela from Georgia asked, what's your favorite part of fatherhood, and what call to action would you give to fathers today?
What of acting?
What call of action would you give to fathers today?
The greatest joy in my life has been my children, period. And I tell fathers all the time, and I do believe this, without sounding chauvinistic, and I've been told that I may sound that way, and I'm not that guy, but I still am a guy who believes that I am responsible for the well-being and the care and the financial stability of my family. I am the head of my household. Now, that doesn't mean that my wife can't work. In fact, I wish she made more money than I did, and I wouldn't work. But I would still consider myself the head of the household. I just allow her to drive the money. But I tell all fathers, being a dad is the most difficult thing that I have ever done in my life, because I have to make decisions that create hardships. And you make a decision, and that balance is very difficult. Do I work so much that I make enough money to provide all of these things? Or do I not work as much and not provide as much, but I'm home more? Trying to find that balance is the most difficult thing that you will ever do in your life. And I promise you, no matter what you do, hindsight's 2020. And when you get down the road, you're going to look at it and go, man, I think between the ages of 3 and 5, I'm using that example, I probably should have been home more. Oh, between 6 and 17, I probably could have been gone more. Probably shouldn't have been up there but so much. But you don't know that. You just don't know. So you just have to work your way through it. Try to balance it as best you can, and love, period. Number one, above everything, love. Always show love, even in your discipline, just as Christ has done us.
Perfect. So Cheryl from Illinois asked, how does God affect the way you live your life, and when did you become a Christian?
I'm going to answer that in 2 phases. Second question first. I became a Christian early on in my young life, but I've grown as a Christian and continue to every day throughout my life. And it affects my life 100%. When I wake up in the morning, my prayer is that I will do what God would have me do, and more importantly, that he give me the desire to pursue his will. I learned a long time ago that I can't do God's work. And if you're out there and you're saying, I live my life to do God's work, you can't do God's work. And I would tell you, you cannot do God's work. Only God can do God's work. And God will work through you, whether you are working with him or not. In all things, he will be glorified, whether you choose him or not. I had a friend, I have a friend that I've just become friends with in the last 2 years, and just fell in love with this human being. And we're completely different. She didn't believe in God. And I told her it didn't matter. He loved her anyway. And that is a truth. So no matter what you do, all God requires of us, the only thing he tells us to do is to love him and love our neighbor. That's it. If you're doing those things, you're doing God's will, and he will work through you. So how does God affect my work and my life? 100%. Everything that I do, I focus on an attempt to please him, because what we're all doing here, this is all temporal. And everything that I have, it's all really his. It's on loan. And in the end, I'm going to be up there with him, and all of this is not going to be, I'm not going to have anything to do with all this. So
this is a pretty good music question from Harrison in Florida. If you could only perform one of your songs for the rest of the time, which one would it be?
Oh, Harrison, that's a terrible question. If I could only, in Florida, hey, by the way, I don't know where you're at in Florida, but be careful, that hurricane's on its way. And we're praying for everybody down there. If I could only sing one song, if I could only sing one song for the rest of time, what song would that be? God, I don't know. I think if I was told I could only sing one song, I wouldn't. I would just pass, because I don't think I could do that. I don't think that I have it in me to just sing one song. Yeah, I'm honest. I'm being completely honest. First of all, singing, as much as I enjoy it and love it, it's not so critical to my being that I have to do it in order to feel good about myself or feel accomplished. Uh, I do love it, and I'm so grateful to God for it. But it doesn't dictate who I am, and it's just something that I do and I do love. But I will say, as much as I love it, I don't think I could just sing one song.
So piggybacking on music, Hannah from Tennessee asked, what's your creative process like behind your music?
Hannah, what is the creative process behind my music? I'm a guy who writes both melody and lyric at the same time. I generally start with an idea, a title, or what we call a hook. Sometimes, though, it's a melody. Sometimes I have a melody that I've set down and I've kind of played, or I hear something in my head, and that's where I start, and I immediately start throwing out lines. But it's really, we just make shit up. We write songs. But I will say, I think as much as we're making stuff up, it's easier to create those things when you have something to draw from. And I have lived up to this point a very full life. So I have a lot of experience and a lot of life's lessons and a lot of life to draw from, to know about certain things. I understand heartache. I understand pain. I understand anger. I understand love. I understand abandonment. I understand all of the emotions that we can go through. I've been through them and continue to go through them. So it's easy to draw from those when we are in the creative process.
All right. So, question about the book, Jeremy from Kentucky. What was it like writing a memoir? And were there any parts of your life that you were nervous to release to the public?
What was it like writing the book? It was quite an experience. It took a long time. As I said earlier, I was very fortunate to be able to write with a guy like Jim DeFleece, who was an experienced and expert book writer. I'm a songwriter. I'm a storyteller. But I generally do that in short spurts. This is my entire life up to this point. Is there anything that I was nervous about talking about? It's difficult for me still. Not difficult, but I don't find comfort in talking about the loss of our son, Jerry. I don't find comfort in that. Some people do, but what I do appreciate is that I know that God uses that, and sometimes not for me. And this is something that I will say that I've learned in the process of writing this book, and I use this in all of my speaking engagements. Sometimes people suffer, and their suffering is not for their own growth, it's for someone else's, because maybe that someone else would not have grown the way that they will had they suffered it themselves. So God uses our suffering to help others. And I use the hot stove analogy, when I talk about singing the Father, my Son, the Holy Ghost. When I wrote that song, I didn't want to sing it for people. I didn't want anybody to hear it. But I did figure out, and looking back, I know that it was God's plan, and God wrote that song through me. But for me, every time I sing that song, it's like touching a hot stove. It's like once you burn your hand, you generally don't do it again, but singing this song, I know that it's going to be painful, but I go out there and I do it because I do believe that even though it may hurt me and it might be suffering at the moment, that God's intending for someone else to hear that. And I'm not comparing my pain. Well, I mean, I kind of am. Soldiers, they're willing to be hurt. They're willing to die for others. They're not going out there going, I got to die so that I can do better. They're doing that so that other people might live a freer life. They're willing to do that. Sometimes our pain is for other people. And in writing this book, I I learned that. I really I really appreciate the meaning of that.
All right. Calvin from Texas, is there a main takeaway you want your readers to get from the book?
Calvin from Texas, yes, there is a main takeaway. I hope that when people read this book, they understand one of the things the thing that I just said. We all suffer. We all experience heartache and hardships. And it is through those things that we become stronger. And it is through those things that we can also strengthen others. So I hope that when people read this book, it motivates them to understand that our heartache is temporal, and two, that we sometimes suffer those things for other people. And I hope that it inspires and motivates them to want to do good, to want to help others, and just to want to try to make this world a better place. I know it sounds super cheesy, but that's the truth.
Connie from North Carolina, what made you want to write and release this book now?
COVID, pandemic. I mean, we had nothing else to do, and we had been talking about doing a book for some time. I'll be honest, even in the process, when we initially started doing this and seeking out writers to help me or whoever, we didn't know I wasn't sure exactly how this process was going to work at that time. But even then, I was questioning whether or not I should be doing a book yet. I always thought a book was something you done when you retired or when you were finished with, with your career, so to speak, in particular. And I feel like I'm really kind of in the middle of my career. We've got a brand new single out now that I think is one of the bigger songs I've ever had. But I'm glad that we did write the book, because I realized that there were so many things that had happened that if I didn't record these things, I might have forgot some of these. So there may be a memoir 2 or B of this. But I really there was nothing else to do during COVID. And it seemed like a good time at the minimum, I thought we would start it. I didn't know that we would go through and really finish this book. But I don't think any of us knew that we were going to be out of work for about 16 months, So almost 16 months with no touring. And so I had a lot of time to spend on it. And Jim and I did just that.
That was all the questions from the portal. Now I'm going to Facebook. Here's one from Tyler. So will your book talk about your love and connection to hunting and the great outdoors?
Oh, absolutely. My book talks about my love and passion for the outdoors. That's a big part of my life. Always has been and always will be. And it's not just the hunting, it's the hunt. It's the environment. That's what motivates me to maintain my relationship with the hunting and fishing world. Is I just absolutely am so passionate about the outdoors, conservation. I want to make sure that my children and my grandchildren and all of those generations that follow get to experience the things that I get to. And the only way we can do that is by ensuring that we're doing that properly. So I do everything I can in that world to ensure that we are preserving and maintaining and conserving those resources. And for me, the outdoors is one of the few places where I find absolute and complete calm and peace. It's where I find I pray more, I meditate more, and spend more time with God than anywhere else in my life. I had one on here.
Yeah, I don't have those. I have Facebook and the portal, but I've already answered all the other ones.
All right. Any advice for a songwriter? I did that. That ain't your question, but it's on here. I answered that one.
Yeah, I'm saying the same ones you are.
Oh, are you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love this. Sorry, I've been interested in music and have passion for it, but hard to write because of my learning disability. Okay, so my son Jerry had extreme dyslexia. Like he had it as bad as the doctor had said they had seen it. And he still managed to be one of the more creative people that I had ever seen. Do not let any disability or anything that anyone refer to as a disability stop you from performing your arts. Like I said, it might not be something that you do for financial gain, but you can definitely receive joy and comfort from any form of the arts. And if music is what it is, you should try it. Now, let's say you can't use your hands, so you can't play guitar. You can, and if you can still write. You can record on a recording device and create lyrics. And quite honestly, I write with a girl, Marla Cannon Goodman, who does not play a guitar, but she sings her tail end off, and she can sing the melodies. And I'm not a great guitar player, folks. I'm not even a good piano. I can barely even peck something out on a piano, but I do enough that I can create a melody. And I could do that if I didn't have my hands, if you want the truth, because I can hear the melody and I can sing it, and someone else can play it. So work with others that can help you to achieve your goal. Hello, Hickman County. Does this thing go up or down?
Top is the new one.
Oh, okay. Kyle. Kyle from Michigan says, your fans look up to you, respect you, and love your strong faith. Who do you look up to? In what way? In that way. Can't wait to see you in November. I can't wait to see you in November as well, Kyle. Who do I look up to in that way? It's funny. I think we need to be careful how we say we look up to someone. There's only one that I truly look up to, and that is my Lord and Savior, my God, my Father in heaven, my Mother Mary in heaven, and my Jesus Christ. I look up to them. Now, I do admire and respect people. Billy Graham, I had a great deal of respect for Billy Graham. I always thought and felt like, and still do to this day, believe that Mr. Billy Graham wanted nothing but to do what God wanted him to do. And he loved God and he loved people, and he wanted to try to share his passion for God with everyone that he could. I thought he was a good man. Didn't know him personally, but I always admired him. I admire, there's a lot of military persons. There's a gentleman by the name of Bill Greer. I think he's one of the greatest military leaders that I had ever met, and I've known a bunch. Some generals, some vice chairmen. I've known some wonderful leaders in our government, in our military. But Bill Greer was one of the greatest. He was a kind man who truly had the well-being of everyone else around him at heart, and first and foremost, even more so than his own. And I think that's what I look for in people. Jerry, my tour manager, he's younger than me, but I respect where he's come from. His life was not easy growing up. And I've got a couple guys that are that way. They're younger guys, and I respect them because they've come from someplace and they could have went a completely different route, and they chose not to, and they worked hard to make right decisions. My son, Kyle, my children, Wyatt, Alex, I look up to these guys in a way that I admire who they are. And each one of them individually have had to deal with the loss of their brother. And that's a very difficult thing, but they've done it with such grace and such kindness that I do believe that God is being glorified in their lives because of that. So, yeah, I hope that answered that question for you. Hello, Southern Illinois. Hey, Pilgrim, you got one?
Well, here's one just touching base with our fall tour. It says you have a very special Veterans Day show held under the Rhyming in Nashville on November the 11th, the same day your new album comes out. What does it mean to you to perform on that historic stage?
Well, I will say performing on Veterans Day anyway is kind of a special thing as a veteran myself. But this show is particularly special. It is the culmination of the God Family Country Tour that we're doing this year. It's the last show on that tour. And we're doing it at the historic Ryman Auditorium. I'm a member of the Grand Ole Opry, and we all know the Grand Ole Opry started at the Ryman Auditorium. And so that's a very special place to me and to our genre, in my opinion, to our format. And to be able to do that on Veterans Day is very special. Really looking forward to that. Um, and generally, I would say one show isn't different than any other show, but that show is going to be a very special show. It may be one of the more special shows that I've ever done in my career. So if you haven't bought a ticket, I don't know how many. I don't know if we have any left. I'll be honest. That show's close to sold out if it hadn't already sold out. But it will probably be one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the better shows we've ever had the opportunity to do. How does a songwriter get a song pitched to Craig Morgan since the industry is so tough? Thank you. Randy, you send it to Red Light Management, Brian Frazier. If I had his cell phone on me, I'd give it to you. Do I have his? Henry,
You got it.
Let me see. No, I can't give his cell phone.
You can give his email out.
I can give you his email. Hold on. So you need to email Brian Frazier. Here we go. Let me give you his email. You can email Brian the song. It is Brian. There it is. It is bryan.frasher@redlightmanagement.com. Email Brian the song, and then he'll listen to it. I kind of screen things. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I'm not going to lie to y'all and tell y'all, yeah, I'll listen. They'll listen to it and they'll know whether or not up front something that I want to hear or should hear. As a writer, I'm real sensitive about listening to other music. Like I said, I don't listen to a lot of radio, a lot, because I listen when I'm traveling some, but because I'm in the creative process all the time. I'm always writing. So I don't want to listen to something and have it sway me or what have you. But yeah, send it to Brian. He'll listen to it and let us know.
Let's see. Barbara asked, "What's your favorite song besides yours?" So what's your favorite song? That's
Barbara, my favorite song ever. Not mine. It's not mine, believe it or not. It's a John Conley song called "Rose-Colored Glasses." It's one of my favorite songs of all time. But I'm also in that top 5 is a song called "Easy." I think Lionel Richie or the Commodores. I don't remember which one. It might have been the Commodores that did it. But that shows you the spectrum of where my hearing and my head is at, from John Conley's "Rose-Colored Glasses" to "Easy" by the Commodores to who knows what. Yeah, but that John Conley's "Rose-Colored Glasses" is probably my favorite song of all time.
Frank was asking if you helped write your new song.
Frank, if you're referring to How You Make a Man, no, I did not write that song, but I can tell you that the instant I heard it, it felt like something that I had written. I had such a personal attachment to it that it felt like something that I had just finished writing, although I didn't. I wrote everything else on the new project, but that's the one song I didn't write.
Just a bunch of comments. I don't see any questions. Unless you see one up there.
If you could redo a famous song, what would it be? If I could redo a famous song. Oh, if I could redo one, I'd want to do this song called "Holy Water" by We the Kingdom.
Yes.
I think that's what, yeah.
Correct.
I absolutely loved that song. We did it on a Facebook Live thing during the pandemic. And I just love what that song says and what it means. And I may actually redo it someday. I don't know. Hello, Arizona. Hello, Summertown. You served with my husband in a 508 in Panama. He was sad to have missed you at the last reunion as he wasn't able to make it. We did get to see you perform in Kansas Speedway on 9/11. Well, y'all should have come up and said something when we were at the Speedway. I wished you had. I love running into to my fellow service members, especially those that I worked with back in those days. And thanks for coming to the show in Kansas. That was a lot of fun. Will you and Blake Shelton be going on the Grand Ole Opry hunt again this year? What does it mean to you to get to connect over hunting and country music? I don't know. Yeah, I hope so. I hope we get to make that trip. It's one of my favorite times of the year because as Opry members, we get together and spend time And I wish I could tell you that we all hunt the whole time we're there, but we don't. We kind of hang out more than we hunt. Those are some of my most favorite dinners in the world. People say if you could sit down and have dinner with anybody, past or present, who would it be? And I can tell you that I've done it. I've done that. I've got to sit down and have dinner with some of the most wonderful people in the world. I've heard some of the most amazing stories from the likes of Jim Ed Brown and Little Jimmy Dickens and Jimmy C. Newman and Eddie and Troy and Blake and I mean the list goes on. And we all have sat there and shared stories over 4-hour dinners and glasses of wine and then sat around and talked about our touring and life and everything. But it's not just the music, it's life. And that's what makes that experience so wonderful. So I absolutely hope that I get to make it back.
Let's see, who was it asked? Forgot her name, sorry it was going so fast, but she asked who would you want to perform with who you haven't got a chance to perform with yet? Like a duet or just sing with on stage?
I don't know. Who is it that I would want to perform with that I haven't yet? I don't know. I got to be honest. That's difficult because I feel like there's a lot. I feel like there would be a lot. I love Lionel Richie. I haven't done that yet. I think everybody in the country music industry but me has done that. And I love him as much as they do, maybe more. But Lionel's the guy that I'd love to just sing with and share the stage with. Carrie Underwood and I toured a bunch of years back, and I love her and what she stands for and who she is and how she represents our format. Have a lot of respect for her and her family. So I think I would enjoy that again. Kelly Clarkson, I think, is one of the most underrated voices in the music world. And I would love, I've been actually thinking about doing trying to do a duet with her. I wrote a couple of songs I think would be great for us. Yeah, I mean, so I think if I had to pick one, I would probably want to do it with Kelly.
That was from Annie, by the way. Annie asked you that question. She also asked you another one. She said, "What's your favorite wine?"
Okay, so that's a trick question. Are you asking grape or brand or blend or what? So I'm a Cabernet guy primarily. I do like all reds, but my favorite grape is the Cabernet Sauvignon grape. There are a few blends out there that I enjoy. My favorite wine of all wines is probably a wine called Plump Jack. It's made by the same the same owners that own Cade. Plump Jack is a organic wine. It's maybe the only organic wine that is perfect in my opinion. It's a perfect Cabernet. Has been for many years. They do such an expert job at knowing when to pull those grapes and how they do what they do, that whole process. So Plum Jack may be my favorite wine, and it is the Cabernet grape that they do that is my favorite grape.
Let's see. I think we got time for one more.
One more.
I just don't see one that we haven't already answered.
Louisiana in the house. Prank Blake with a game warden, telling the game warden have warrants for him. Frank, that's happened. They've had warrants for him. He is an outlaw when it comes to the hunting world. He isn't. I don't know if he's ever done it legally. There you go. How many songs have you written?
Mike Rogers commented and said 3.
Yeah, well, that's Mike. Mike's written 3. Mike, I don't think has Mike written anything that was a hit except what he wrote with me? Has he written anything that was a hit?
I don't think so.
He's written a few bluegrass things, but I have no idea how many songs are. I know it's in the thousands. I've written more than 2,000 and less than 5,000. Yeah, but I've probably demoed, and that means went in and actually recorded probably, I don't know, I've written more than 2,000. I've probably written closer to 3,000 or 4,000 because I've demoed 1,500 plus songs or more. I don't even know. I got to be honest. I've been writing for 20 years. And early on in my career, good Lord, we would write, 100 songs a year or more. Just wrote all the time. So, yeah, I know 2 times 100 is 2,000, but I've written more. I don't know, written a ton, a lot of songs. All right.
We can wrap it up.
Just ordered your book. Can't wait to read it. Thank you very much. So the book is God, Family, Country, written by me and Mr. Jim DeFleece. Jim, go look at all of his other books as well. Great writer. But get this one, pre-order it now, or meet me at one of my signings. And I've told everyone, listen, if you buy the book and it's not signed, and you show up at one of my concerts with your book, I will sign it for you. My merchandise manager and my tour manager will make sure that I get it, and I will sign it for you. There's a good chance that if there's enough people there with books, I will come out and sign them. And if it has been signed, I will personalize it for you if you bring it to a show. I hope y'all enjoy the book, and I hope it inspires you, like I said, to want to do good and know that no matter what we experience in our life, we make a choice. And we pick the path. And I hope it again, just motivates you and inspires you to want to do good and be good. I hope you enjoy it, and thank you so much. Thank you, Premier, for hosting this event, and look forward to seeing everybody out there on the road.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching today.